Good morning. All right, it's there. All right, there we go. Okay. Um, okay, so yesterday we were talking about saving yourself at someone else's expense. And it turns out that there's a distinction that is brought in halacha about saving yourself at someone else's expense. If your name is on the list, and the only way to get your name off is to have someone else replace you. So then you're not allowed to do that. Because if you know that another Jew is going to get harmed in the process of you saving yourself, if you've already been implicated for damage or for some other problem, so then you're not allowed to do that. And I think that's true even when it comes to Hatzalas Nefashos. If you know that by saving yourself, another Jew will be implicated, you're not allowed to do that. However, um, if no one has been implicated yet, no one's on a list, but you have the ability to prevent yourself from getting on the list, so then you're allowed to do whatever measures you need to in order to prevent yourself from injury or harm or financial loss. So the case that we were talking about was the case of where you know that the government is going to be implicating certain individuals for a certain penalty or a tax. So that's the distinction. I can certainly imagine that happening in our current environment, where let's say the CRA is colluding to go after certain Jewish organizations and to make them lose their nonprofit status, which is, the whole lawfare issue is being used today. Um, I just think our current government is headed in such a disastrous direction from so many different fronts. I don't know if you listened to Carney's speech from Davos, which is being hailed as so brave and so. I'm sure you wouldn't really understand. Well, bottom line was, when you're a country that has been dependent upon the United States, it's time to say, it's time for all of us to get together, all of those middle countries, meaning those dependent on the US, and to say, we've had enough. We're going to collaborate and get rid of the United States dependency. That's what he was basically saying. He's leading the charge, and he's being so foolish about it, even though he's coming across as very wise. But he's got his own ideology, anti-West, anti-US ideology that is driving him to do this. But that same ideology is driving him to go against the Jews. And I think he would like nothing more than to see all the Jews out of Canada, which is fine. That's probably what he's going to end up getting if he's allowed to have his way. But I could easily see, getting back to our discussion in halacha, I can easily see the situation, practically speaking, where a Jew who runs a Jewish organization, or let's say there's an office that's going against, that wants to round up Jews for their businesses and try to get them all into trouble, and you get wind of this, you can definitely try to speak to someone in that office that you're close to make sure that your name does not appear on the list, right, of people who are going to be witch hunted. Okay, so okay, that's where we are in the world today. Anyone? Okay, next halacha. מי שהוציא es החפץ בחנות מהמקום שהיה מוצנע ושמור, ולא החזירו למקומו השמור בתוך עומק המדף וכדומה. Okay, let's say a person walks into a store and he picks off an item off the shelf, looks at it, decides not to purchase it, puts it back on the shelf, but he doesn't put it back in the way that it had originally been positioned, such that he puts it too close to the edge. Okay? Now, nechshav oto adam kemazik umitchayev benezikin. That person is held responsible if at some point later that item falls and causes damage or is damaged. V'lochein, im shachach hakona harishon la'achzir la'otam kelim l'makom hashamor shayim munachim. And therefore, let's say the first person, the first consumer who came into that store, did not put them back in their proper place. And as a result of not putting them back in their proper place, a guy came along and either brushed up against it, causing it to break, or tripped over it because he put it back in a place. Or let's say, you've got that a big pile of apples or tomatoes, and the grocer had just put them all on a big pile, and you come along and you topple the apple cart, such that it's very, very precarious that anyone who just even brushes slightly against it is going to cause all the apples to fall, or anything of that kind. So chayev harishon l'shalim l'ba'olam avur oto nezek. The first person is really legally responsible, even though the damage did not happen until the second person came along. V'chein im kitotza'a minezek nigram nezek l'mishin nizok mehashvarim chayev l'shalim l'nizek. And similarly, if someone is injured as a result of the shards of that broken item, then the first person, again, who didn't put it back in a responsible way, ultimately is going to be chayiv. What's the source of this halacha?
You don't need a sign or whatever. It's just obligated. Like these sometimes you see signs. Please put back in the proper place.
No, you don't need a sign if if you put it back in such a way that it's likely to fall. Yeah, the Chazon Ish writes the following halacha: Hanotel even chaveru shahayamunach b'makom mutzna. If a person takes the rock that belongs to a friend, meaning he pulls it off his property, b'hinicho b'rishus harabim, and he places it in a public area, o b'makom hatorfa, or let's say a place. I think that hatorfa could mean a place that people go. Haminiya chayev v'haba'olim pater. The person who puts down the rock is going to be liable, and the owner of the rock is going to be pater. Vimnoda leba'olim v'hayelo penai l'salko v'lo sile kevi b'zeh machlokas harishonim yu'in sham. What if the owner of the rock in that scenario discovered that his friend had put the rock in a public area and had the opportunity to remove it and didn't? So then it's a machlokas in the poskim as to who actually is liable. Could there be joint liability and so forth? He brings from the Sefer Chavos Yoyer, B'dvar oreach shahalach lishon l'cheder mishkavo, v'shochach lechavos ner shava, v'hinicho dolek. A guest, you have a guest in your home, and when he goes to bed, he forgets to put out the candle that's burning. Okay, v'nisraf hashulchan v'ha'argaz, and as a result, the table and the accompanying chest nearby end up getting burned. Okay, pasak sham shechayv l'shalim da'adam u'ad la'olam. There too, the Chavos Yair says you're liable, the person who forgot to blow out the candle. Meaning that what we're seeing from all of this is that even though we said previously that sometimes there's causative damage for which you're not liable, but there's other types of causative damage for which you are liable. Here, I have a candle. If I let the candle burn to its base, it'll cause damage. So by not blowing out the candle, I'm a damager. Okay, even though it's through inactivity that I'm causing the damage. So that's another example. My putting back the jar, I put it back on the shelf. or the fruit or whatever it was, but I didn't put it back responsibly, so then I can be held liable for damage that it causes afterwards. Okay. Okay, so let us go to the next case. Adam muad la'olam bein shogeg bein mezid. A person is considered to be an assumed damager, meaning the word muad means that the Gemara distinguishes, and the Mishnah really distinguishes between what's called a tam and a muad. When I have an animal that's a docile beast of burden, and it's never been violent before. If this animal, while I'm leading it through the public area, goes ahead and causes damage or gores somebody, for just completely out of the blue, I'm not liable for full damages because this animal was never expected to behave this way. That's called a tam. Muad means when the animal already has an established reputation and a pattern of being violent. If I allow that animal to be released to cause damage, I'm going to be liable for full damages because I already know that this animal presents a hazard and I didn't properly protect the public from this hazard. Okay, that's the basic principle that's brought in the Gemara in Bava Kama. Now, based on that, the question is, what is the status of a human being? And the Gemara says that human beings are always a muad. There's no such thing as a tam human being. Human beings are assumed to be hazardous from our very inception. Now, I guess why is that? Because every human being has free will, to behave as he or she wishes, and as such, human beings are far less predictable than docile creatures. And therefore, and also human beings are also fully in control of their behavior. So therefore, any human being who goes out and causes damage is fully responsible, has to assume full responsibility. So, Adam muad la'olam ben shogeg ben mezid, that therefore humans are considered to be muad, always perpetually in a state of hazard. And that's true whether they damage intentionally or unintentionally. V'lachein, shikor shechaval b'chavero o hezik mamon chavero, tzarich l'shalem al ma shehizik. And therefore, if a person gets intoxicated and he goes ahead and as a result of him not being in full control, he ends up causing damage, he either damages or injures another human being, or he damages the property of another human being. So then he has to pay full damages of whatever damage he caused. Ve'eno niftar mitashlumin, and you can't say that he's exempt. Vafilu im haya shikor kishichruso shalot, and this is true even if he's totally plastered. Shichruso shalot is that he has the intoxication of lot. Lot was so drunk that he didn't even know that his daughter was the one seducing him. Like he was totally unaware of what was going on. V'yesh omrim shebizman simcha shel chasen v'kala o bishar simcha uschok im hizik potter milashalim. But some are of the opinion that damage that's caused during a simcha, the damager is exempt because people know that if they get in that circle, they're putting their lives on the line. Ele imkein roim beis hadin shenigram mikach kilkul arishus biyadam liknos derech sayag begeder. Unless the Beis Din notices that the damages that are being caused by going to a simcha are on the rise, and if they feel that they need to create some kind of community standard or community, they have to take a community measure because things have gone crazy, things have gone way out of hand. The Beis Din of any community can take it upon themselves to change that halacha and to impose a fee. Now, where does this all come from?
Remember a few years ago, Mordechai Shlomo's daughter's wedding to the Talmud family. What happened is a lady.
I remember.
Remember that she was going out and they put these candles along the.
It was a party planner
Right, right.
who had foolishly, again, yes, foolishly, no, she wasn't acting maliciously, she was acting foolishly. She decided that the decor would be beautiful if she put candles along the seats, to line the aisles with candles, and the candles were on the floor. And a woman's dress caught fire as she sat down, and she sustained injury. She sustained burn injuries. So halachically, it's an open and shut case. The woman who put the candles there is liable.
What about the venue?
The venue might be liable as well. In other words, the question is, who is the liable party? Who is considered to be the cause of the damage? Certainly, if the venue allows this foolish woman to do whatever she wanted, they have to assume joint liability as well. But one thing is clear, that's a classic case of damage, of putting something in a place where it's hazardous. I mean, what were these people thinking? Come on.
The same way we used to have sparklers, no more. When people used to bring sparklers for chasanas, and then people got burned.
That's what happened in Switzerland. It's like it's really steam. So it caught the ceiling and then the whole place, place was.
What happened?
In Switzerland, there was a fire a few weeks ago in a bar. And they were coming out. It was like a holiday. I think it was around New Year's.
New Year's, yeah.
These sprinklers, and somehow it caught fire. Something that was flammable on the ceiling, and then the whole place went on fire. And there were a lot of people in there. They couldn't get out, and there's like many people died. This is just a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow, that's horrible. I didn't.
Yeah, 150 people died.
How many?
150 people died?
Or were burned.
Yeah, just very recently.
I didn't realize it's caused by sparklers. I was,
Yeah.
I was at that wedding, son wedding. We were sitting right there where the woman's dress caught fire, and one of the candles near our seats. We saw it.
how'd you put it out? What were they?
They heard it out.
So I just want to share with you a halacha that's brought down in Hilchos Purim, because it's going to be Purim, I guess, in another month and some change. Here's something really interesting. In Hilchos Purim, it's one of the last halachas in Orach Chaim in the Shulchan Aruch, and he quotes it in the notes as well. So let's take a look at this halacha. It's brought by the Ramah. It's the last siman in Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim. Let's see, or maybe it's the second to last. Hold on. Let's see. Here, let me just get the exact quote. Tafresh Tzadi Vav, Shem Mahari Mintz. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so let me just share this with the people in TV land. Here you go. Okay. Sifches, Mutter Lisa Isha Bepurim. First of all, the Machaber paskins that you're allowed to get married on Purim. The Ramah says that's true, Bein B'Yudalid, Bein B'Tes Vav, that you can get married, you can make a wedding on the 14th of Adar and on the 15th of Adar. The Kol Shekain Shemuter Lasos Pidyon Haben, and you can certainly do a Pidyon Haben. And there's not a problem of Ein Ma'arvin Simcha B'Simcha. Okay, so let's take a look here. We're going to also cross-reference to the Mishnah Berurah. 1 second. Let's see here. So we'll start with Chaf Ches in the Mishnah Berurah. So normally you're not allowed to get married on a yantif or even on Chol HaMoed because we have a principle of Ein Ma'arvin Simcha B'Simcha. He says, Mishnah Berurah explains, V'lo dami l'chag dichsiv v'samachta b'chagecha v'lo b'ishtecha, that it says you're supposed to rejoice in your holiday, not in any other simcha like getting married. Masha'ein came b'Purim, but such a law does not hold true for Purim. You're allowed to get married on Purim. The Hamurama Kasav the Yase Achupa b'Yom Yud Gimel v'Hasuuda be'erev. The Ramah says, really, don't make the chuppah on Purim itself. Make the chuppah on the 13th of Adar, which is Tainus Esther, and then you could make the meal that evening. V'ayin b'shari tshuva shekosov shebemedinos elu pashad haminag laheter kedasa shulchan aruch. Yet the Shari Tshuva says the minhag is to be lenient to even allow a wedding, a chuppah, even on Purim itself. Kedasa Shulchan Aruch u'v'chemed Moshe kosav shenochan yoser lasos achuppah b'sof yom yudalid u'seudas Purim yasa mikodem. And the Chemed Moshe, which seems to be the conclusion of the Mishnah Berurah, says make the wedding on the afternoon of Purim, and the meal should be after Seudas Purim, meaning have a separate Seudah for Purim and then a separate Seudah for the Chasana after Purim. Okay, now, the Kol Shekein Shematalas Pidyon Ben, go back to the Ramah, Uma Shenahagu Lilbosh Partsufim Bepurim, he says, and that which we make, we wear masks on Purim, the Gever Love Simlas Isha, the Isha Kli Gever, and people wear, even men wear women's clothing, women wear men's clothing to dress up. He says, Ein Isser B'Davar. He says, even though the Torah says that you're not allowed to cross-dress, nonetheless, on Purim it's permitted, She'ein Mechavnim Ela L'Simcha Ba'alma, because the only intent is Simcha and not for any nefarious intent, which is what the Torah prohibits. The Torah prohibits cross-dressing because we're worried that a man will go into a woman's washroom and act as a peeping Tom, which of course was predicted by the Torah, that once you allow cross-dressing, this is what's going to happen. This is brought in Chazal. And so now you have all of these people saying, oh, you have to allow, persons trans and everything. Well, of course, that's usser. V'chein belavishas kilayim derabanan. And also we're lenient when it comes to wearing rabbinic kilayim. So it's not mamish wool and linen woven together, but let's say a piece of wool draped over a piece of linen, we're lenient on Purim. I'm not sure why, but he says, but tov lahachmir is what the Ateres Zekanim says. And because even when you're serving Hashem with joy, there should be a sense of awe and at the same time. And he brings down, and the Ola Shabbos says that many people disagree with that and say that you're not allowed to wear even kilayim derabana. Now, v'yesh omrim da'aser, aval amina kisvara harishana. Some say that too is prohibited, but we paskin like the first custom. And the Mishnah Berurah brings from the Taz that sheyesh levatel minhag zehin bepurim o b'simchas nisuin, that we should abolish any minhag that takes liberties with rabbinic shatnez. Ve'im kol hamalbushim shel ish rak melevush echad shel isha v'nikarim heim efshar she'ein limchos bahem. But if a person is dressed as a man and only one thing that he's wearing looks effeminate, like he's wearing like a wig, but other than that, everything else is clearly recognizable that he's a man, you can be lenient. V'chein b'nei adam hachotfim zeh mizeh derech simcha ein bazeh mishum lo tigzol. And similarly, if people grab things from each other on Purim in order to make merry, there's no problem with that of lo tigzol, v'nagu kach, because that's the general custom on Purim, that part of the merrymaking is to grab things. However, uvilvad shelo yasu davar shelo kehogen al pi tovei ha'ir, but that's provided that it has the sanction of the leaders of the community.
We might grab things.
Let's say, everyone's got a different grogger, and the minhag is that, the kids grab groggers from each other, or candy from each other or whatnot. So he says that is also considered to be okay on Purim because it's fair game. And therefore, if you grab a humintashen from a guy as he's about to eat it, and you say a bracha on it, that's perfectly fine. It's not like we say normally by stolen goods, you shouldn't make a bracha on it because you're blaspheming God. Mihu kasav bishla lav mishanas chasidim hi v'shomer nafsho yirchak mi malbushim dekilayim v'lachtov mechavero. And then he quotes the Shalah HaKadosh, who says that a pious person should avoid all of these activities even on Purim, because that's not the way a righteous person behaves. And then the Mishnah Berurah writes, "V'nagu kach, hainu me'it kriyat ha'megillah ad leil sudas Purim shem shnei leilos v'yom echad." And basically, it's like fair game, starting from the night of Purim going into the next evening, because that's when people do all of their merrymaking. So that seems to be the prevailing attitude, is that if you're doing this at a time of merrymaking, when people understand that this is the accepted norm, then if by accident you end up injuring someone or damaging someone's property, you can't be held liable because people, jump into the circle for merrymaking, or people, participate in a Simchas Purim in this way, with the understanding that there's a slightly elevated risk of injury or damage because of all of the merrymaking.
Going back to that wedding, part of it was, this is the part of making the sukkah better, the beauty of it, walking down to the chuppah with the candles going down and everything like that. So
yeah, I don't buy it. That's not part of the merrymaking. It's not part of the merrymaking to expose people to hazardous material. Like if a guy were to go into a circle, like I will tell you what I think would be okay. What if a guy, the flaming hat, where a guy pours
Robin Van Dam stores, you do that.
barbecue starter, what is it called?
Lighter fluid.
Lighter fluid. He puts lighter fluid on his hat. He ignites it, and then he puts it on his head and goes into the circle and dances. I don't know if anyone still does that anymore. That used to be the big
I
thing.
don't think it's allowed anymore.
Right. So if a person were to get too close to that person and sustain an injury, I don't think that you could hold that person liable. Number one, because everyone is going into the circle with their eyes open, knowing that you're standing next to a guy who's got a flaming hat. Why are you doing that? Why would you even bother to go close to him? The fact that you're going close to him means that you are willing to take a slight risk. I'll tell you, there's also a story, I will hold it here for today. There's also a story about a guy who was a chassan. I heard this story a few years ago. They used to put the guy on a table, lift up the table and have him dance on the table. Unfortunately, the guy fell, sustained a head injury, and has never been the same. So I don't go for any of that shtick anymore. Maybe because I'm an old man by now. Anyway, have a